started, right? So this is the May 28th, 2026 Crossplane community meeting. I will send a link to folks right now in the chat if you don't have it to the agenda doc, so you can add any suggestions for the agenda. You can add your name to the attendees list. Feel free to hop in there and do that. So let's talk about releases. The biggest news by far is the 2.3 release. We just finished that within a week ago, I'd say. That was pretty recent, right? So I think a couple big points to make here. One, actually, Adam, do you want to talk about the Crossplane CLI changes there that people need to know about, or do you want me to cover it since I wrote the release?
Yeah, I can talk about it. Sure.
Give it a go.
So we talk about both of these things, the APIs one and the CLI stuff. So as part of this release, the APIs directory in the Crossplane repository is now a separate Go module. The reason we did this is that it allows other external code bases to depend on the APIs without depending on the rest of Crossplane. In particular, this means that things in Crossplane runtime can now depend on the APIs. So that means we can move things like the handy X package into Crossplane runtime and not have to copy it from Crossplane to use it. So that was done in service of splitting the CLI out into its own repository. And I guess in the APIs there, we did a little bit of renaming and cleanup at the same time, just because it was an opportunity to do it when people have to make changes anyway. So there, a little bit of work for anybody who depends on those things. But hopefully it's a one-time thing, and it's all pretty mechanical. There's not any real behavior changes there. On the CLI side, it is now hosted in its own repository. I'll talk a little bit later about what's new there and how we've done releases from it. But just a heads up that some commands have moved around. In particular, things that were in the alpha and beta trees are not alpha and beta anymore. We're marking maturity in a different way. And that really the goal of that is that when those things mature to the next maturity level, the command won't change and your scripts won't break. But it doesn't mean that your scripts are going to break now. So we're kind of taking the one-time pain. Exception to that is render, since it was not alpha or beta. Crossplane render is still there. It's just hidden from the help. So it's like first class name is Crossplane composition render or Crossplane operation render, depending what you're rendering. But if you just use the Crossplane render command, that'll still be the Crossplane composition render that we're all used to. So we wanted to not break that, since it's not marked as an alpha or beta feature. I think that covers it. I'll talk when we talk about CLI stuff later. I can talk about what else is new in the CLI.
Thanks, Adam, for covering that stuff. Yes, those are the important ones to know for the 2.3 release time frame here, about how people could be impacted or need to absorb those changes. The first set there is not applicable unless you're at a source code level importing the Crossplane code, depending on the Crossplane code. But the CLI one is more user facing. If you're a consumer of or user of the Crossplane CLI, then you're affected there. So important to take note of those. And thanks, folks, for the understanding as those changes got rolled out. And then at a high level as well, some of the features there, the top three are ones to know about, really. So Nick took the initiative here to, instead of basically duplicating all of the logic to run a reconciliation of a composite resource inside of Crossplane render, that code, the actual composite resource reconciler now gets invoked during the render operation. So you've got the real code running there that does real things to actually have a higher fidelity experience in terms of Crossplane render. The output there will be more like what you'd see on the live cluster, essentially. So I think that was a good change there to make that more realistic and minimize any sort of differences you might have between like development time and actually in a real cluster. And Christopher Haar added a new alpha feature here for protecting providers that are in use. Basically, if you set the enable provider deletion protection flag, and then you have providers running that have instances of their managed resources. That if you try to delete the provider object, it will be protected from that deletion. That deletion will be blocked as long as those managed resources exist. So that was, I think, a long time coming, and thank you, Christopher, for doing that. And then Christopher already followed up in the 2.4 timeframe that we just started on for doing something similar for, I think, for XRs that are in use and also configurations also. So this pattern is playing out nicely to protect other types of resources as well. And then also, so Yortis added the plumbing in the managed reconciler and the API types, et cetera. And then also, I think for XRs as well, of being able to annotate these resources and give them specific, reconciliation polling timeframe stuff. So you used to be only to be able to do that like at the global level, and now you can do that like on a specific instance of a resource. You can say, hey, this one reconcile it less often or more often, if that may be your desire. And so yeah, that's all in the managed reconciler and Crossplane runtime as well. So when providers pick up that new version of the managed reconciler, Crossplane runtime, they'll start getting that functionality as well. But it's in core, it's in runtime, and available right now in those places. So yeah, great. And then Yortis and then Jesus as well were our MVPs for this release for all the great work that they've been doing. Yortis for the feature we just talked about. And then Jesus for all these providers he's managing and maintaining and getting releases out. So thank you very much for both of you all for that effort. So that was 2.3. There was a series of patch releases as well. Most of those were around updating fixes for CVEs and security fixes for our dependencies. So there's the 2.3 patch already to fix a CVE in some of our dependencies. 2.2, 2.1, and 1.20 all got patch releases as well. So for 2.4, we've already got the board going there a bit. It's not fully populated yet, but some of the stuff that's already in review, some of the stuff that we know is in the backlog there is already on the board and ready to go. So we're in the first week of 2.4, so we've still got almost 3 months to work on this release cycle. My big ask to folks would be, if there's issues or pull requests, et cetera, that you want to get some attention in 2.4, please go ahead and make some noise about it. Let us know about it, so that'll help prioritize things on the roadmap there. Some things that we know we already will be doing is I talked about this at a community meeting the other day, but this sort of a CLI basically to go look at your cluster and tell you if it's safe to upgrade to V2 without being hit by any breaking changes. That's in the works, and I'm expecting to have a PR open for that. I didn't get any negative feedback about this proposal. Nobody pushed back on it. It seems pretty straightforward. So I'm hoping to have that PR open for that and early in the milestone here, so that won't be too late into the milestone. We talked about the extended deletion protection for XR configurations that Christopher Haar is working. Bob, hopefully, I know you all were making progress at the very end of 2.3, but didn't quite make it for management policy enhancements. Is that still something that's going on early in the 2.4 milestone?
It's still something that needs to be finished up. Yeah, it's just a matter of getting back to it.
Awesome. Yep. Thanks for your effort on that. And then Adam, I would thought that, am I correct that multi-active function revisions is something that you'll be spending time on in this milestone as well?
Yeah, I am anticipating at least that I will be able to spend some time on this. Yeah.
Excellent. Good. And then, as always, core reliability stuff, bug fixes, critical things like that, and community PRs that lots of folks are driving PRs right now. So I do definitely want to make a lot of progress on those in the 2.4 milestone. But yes, other than that, please do raise your hand, make some noise. Let the maintainer know what's important to you all in the 2.4 milestone for making some progress on, because I know there's lots of stuff open, but what's the most important stuff to everybody is the key thing to understand as the milestone goes on. All right, cool. Feel free to reach out at any time, basically. Lots and lots of providers and functions, etc. People can click through to the release notes to see all of those. We don't have any specific updates this time since most all the folks that focus on the upjets and extensions and providers ecosystem, et cetera, are on holiday for the entire week here. So I didn't get an update on those, but we'll pick that up again next time because I know there are lots of good investments that are continuing to be made there. If folks want to click through any of this stuff, is Yuri on the call, by the way? I don't know if he is, but Yuri gave a bunch of talks at recent KCD. I think it was in Prague is where it was held. So there's definitely some, and I'm sorry I didn't format these links like I normally do. So you can click on them and see what you get. But lots of really good talks there, focused around Crossplane, obviously, at that recent KCD. So definitely some cool things to click into and check out those talks if your folks are interested in those. Adam, do you want to give us SIG CLI updates?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, we've released 2.3.0 and 2.3.1 from the new Crossplane CLI repository. For now, we are uploading the artifacts from those releases to the main Crossplane releases bucket as well, just to keep them accessible for folks who maybe have firewall rules and stuff that prevent them from using other buckets. But there is a new location for CLI builds, and I'm updating the install scripts to point at the new location for new releases. So at some point in the future, the versioning will diverge, and there's a pull request there with a design doc about that. So still finalizing the details, but I think we kind of agree that the CLI should be able to move a little faster than core. That's the idea. So the big changes in 2.3, we did reorganize the command tree. So it's all a noun first structure now. And that I think hopefully makes it a little more intuitive as we add commands to decide where they should go, and keeps it from sprawling and being a giant mess of commands at the top level. So it sets us up for some scale there. The big addition here is the project-based developer experience tooling. So this is the tooling that it's based on the tooling that we built at Upbound, but we've built an upstream version of it now. So we'd love to get people using that, trying it out, get feedback on it. Like Jared mentioned, we've updated render. Sorry, go ahead.
And Adam, did you also say too that like a getting started guide and walkthrough, et cetera, is coming soon for all this new functionality?
Yes. So there are some, I do have some example projects right now, but there's not any like really good getting started documentation for it. So that's on my to-do list probably next week to write some good docs for it.
Nice. And where are those example projects located at? Should we drop some links here for folks?
Put a link. I'll add a link to the doc here. It's in a
sweet
repository under my GitHub right now.
Awesome.
But yeah, like Jared mentioned, the render has been updated, and Bob mentioned in the chat there are a couple behavior differences that I think we're going to correct, and some that are probably not going to change. So if you're relying on render output, it might have changed a little bit, and there are some things we're going to change so that it's the same as before, and some things that will not change so it's not the same as before. The other thing here is the reference docs that we have on docs.crossplane.io are now auto-generated from the CLI, so they won't go out of date. We still have to remember to run the generation at each release for now, at least. But that means that they match the help that's in the CLI itself, and should be always the same as what actually exists. So that's pretty cool. And if anyone wants to help write better documentation for any of the commands in the CLI, contributions are more than welcome there. And it really is just writing a markdown file in the Crossplane CLI repository. And that'll go into the help as well as the generated docs.
And so that's a good point, Adam. So like in terms of like the CLI reference documentation here on docs.crossplane.io, if we want to make changes there, the source for that would be in the Crossplane/CLI repo first, and then we can generate it from there.
Yep, exactly. That's right.
Cool. Good to know.
Yeah. And I guess the last thing to call out there is we're going to have a SIG CLI meeting next week to chat about what's what we want to do next in the CLI, things that are upcoming. We can also chat about the versioning stuff. So I think, yeah, there is an agenda doc attached to that meeting. And I would love to see interested people at that one next Tuesday.
Sweet. That's Tuesday coming up, like in 5 days or so from now.
Yeah, in this time slot. So whatever this is in your local time.
Whatever now is.
Yeah.
Now plus 5 days. Got it. Awesome. Anything else from folks on 6CLI to add to that? It's a massive effort and release for 2.3. I know there's a lot of things moving around, but there's a ton of great stuff that moves the experience forward for Crossplane. There's no doubt about that. So great job, everybody in 6CLI. All right. So the next one is so we talked about this at last community meeting, and there's definitely some interest in it, and I think it's important. We want to get organized around how to upgrade and migrate to V2 properly. There's a bunch of efforts from a bunch of different places, and so I want to kind of get everybody together, get those aligned and organized, understand the best practices, and then figure out what we can do to kind of consolidate this effort and, have what should the project do as a whole to help people, because upgrading to V2 itself is not hard. It's the migrating of existing cluster scoped workloads to V2 namespace style workloads. It's, not required, but is, the future forward, so to speak. And it provides a lot of nice benefits by being able to namespace things. So look for soon a kickoff for a SIG around V2 migration stuff. If you're already interested in it, you're interested in it, feel free to ping me about that. But we'll broadly announce that. We'll get a kickoff meeting together. We'll start kind of planning things together. So a bunch of stuff. There's a massive space of things to work on there. So I'm excited to work on some of that stuff with you all and get going on that. So be on the lookout for the SIG getting started. And Stephen, it looks like you dropped a link in here. Do you want to talk about that real quick? It's kind of what this is.
Yeah, this is a very basic tool that that migrates manifests from V1 to V2. So it's just for the manifest itself. It's not for any resources on the cluster, but it's just you could set it up and just run analyze, and it'll tell you the changes that need to be made. And then you could also run to migrate the resources. And there are some skills at the bottom that it's integrated with Claude, so you can have Claude. The first version I did was all Claude, but it took a long time and it wasn't always super accurate. So I converted it to Go, and it runs pretty quickly.
Nice.
Yeah, as part of a resource. I mean, I can't guarantee there's lots of corner cases, especially once you get into the functions themselves. But it should handle like all the top level Kubernetes manifests.
Nice, Stephen. This is a great example then, right, of this effort. It would be great to align this with like the entire ecosystem, effort, right?
Yeah,
Of have something consolidated. Like this looks like amazing work. So, if this could be part of like kind of a more official flow that we're recommending, then that would be even better, right? So yes, perfect. Thanks for dropping that. And sounds like you will be a member of SIG V2 migration.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
looking forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, you had your check there too. I think, just all parts of the same tooling.
Yeah, exactly. All parts of the same puzzle, all pieces to the same puzzle, right? Yeah, dude. Awesome. Great work, man. Cool. Okay, let's go over to Jonas now with the most exciting aspect of the community meeting here. If you're ready to start sharing, I'll stop now, Jonas, and you can start.
Thank you. Let me check if I don't see an option to share the screen, to be honest.
Okay. Let me. I haven't seen that before, that people don't have permissions. I just elevated you to co-host. Does that give you new permissions or anything, or share? Or does Zoom just move buttons around like they do?
It moved them a little bit, so I need to check where the sharing is or supposed to be. Okay, yeah. Now it's much better.
Okay, cool. Great. Perfect. Does that work?
1 second. And Oh, I will need to reopen Chrome. So give me a few seconds. I will be back.
Cool. Yep. Come right on back. I see Jonas is back now, I think. Or maybe not quite yet. Oh, no, two Jonases.
I have a new laptop, and unfortunately, I did not have permissions on Google Chrome to have that. Okay, let me know if you can see the screen.
Yep, I can see like the entire desktop, I think is what you're sharing.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
the goal. Okay, so quick background. Provider Anthropic happened because I've wanted to manage agents on cloud platform so that I don't have to manage the sandboxing, network sandboxing, memory, credentials, all of that on my own. I just wanted to have managed agents that will do some tasks for me. And then the realization happened. Cloud platform does not have Terraform provider, Pulumi provider, overall no infrastructure as code approach. They only have SDKs for the most common languages, so Go, Python, Java, a few others. And then, because I've had 2 weeks of vacations and Cloud Max subscription, I've decided that, okay, maybe it's time to check, can we generate proper Crossplane providers based on that? Short answer is yes, we can. Long answer is Claude is using Stainless, which is like SDK generator, and they have really good stable APIs for everything they do with their SDKs. So it's pretty easy to teach Claude how to actually generate Crossplane providers from those SDKs. The whole development happened with agentic comments. I will actually rewrite that to skills because then it's easier to reuse it, especially in the agent flow that I will show you in a few seconds. But literally all development was done with Claude. It was a few days of going back and forth, but overall the base is based on those few commands and few template files to actually build the base of the reconciler, of the resource types, of collection types, and few things like that. So pretty similar approach as we have with Abject. So templates for the reconcilers and the logic, and then instead of generating code from Terraform, we generate it from the SDK with agentic development. Later, I've added opportunity to add overlays. So if there are some resources that need to have specific patches added to have the reconciliation logic work, then can do that via overlays, which are picked up by the commands. But let's not go into implementation that much. What Provider Anthropic gives you, you can, like I've said, you can manage managed agents on Cloud Platform. Currently, it only supports Anthropic's hosted cloud platform, but I plan to add AWS and GCP hosted cloud platform because Anthropic's SDK supports them now. So that's the goal for the next probably few weeks. And what you can do with Provider Anthropic, you can create agents which are stateful via sessions. Sessions are instances of an agent, and you can also manage memory for the agents. You can actually seed memory using memory store memory objects. And you can create any kind of credentials that the agent may need to connect via MCPs to some external secrets. So if you've ever done agentic development, you have most of the things that you already need to actually develop things on remote environment, which you can easily isolate, restrict it to only access few particular host names, for example, or few particular host code bases. So it's pretty easy way to just start doing agentic development. Because the overall platform is SDK managed by default, I thought that, okay, maybe I will actually need to import some of my stuff back into Crossplane. And I did not want to do it manually using external name with identifiers, because Claude does not use like proper identifiers. They are randomly generated, so it's pretty hard to import everything. So I started adding observed resource collections, similar as provider Kubernetes does. So you can actually batch import resources from Cloud Platform using some predicates. Either you can import all of them of that one type, or you can add predicates as metadata match, which is like tags matching at the provider, or if you have some more complex logic that you would like to import the agents based on, you can actually use cell filters and filter what attributes agents or any other resource at Cloud Platform have, and only import the resources that actually match those conditions. So it gives you a lot of flexibility if you've already had some stuff on Cloud Platform. But yeah, let's just do a short demo before I start talking too much. What I will do is I will show you. First, I will just start the workflow in the background so that I can show you what actually happens in my personal development flows. But I will show you what was done in the provider Anthropic itself, because like I've mentioned, it's managed by I manage everything here by Claude. So I've opened an issue today to update SDK to the new version. And what happened in the background is I have a agent factory that works autonomously on this repository. So first step was controller picking up, okay, there's a new issue, I need to triage it. The triage has happened, it's work for agent, it has medium priority, it's type dependency updates. Then the work was picked up by the maintainer agent. That maintainer agent opened the PR. Updating Anthropic SDK requires few more things than just updating Go package, because we need to check if there were any regression in types, if there were any model updates that we need to add because some new required field happened. So in the background, maintainer agent evaluated all of that, updated the Go module, and then actually regenerated all the code. In that case, the only change was the stamp with SDK version, because there were no breaking changes in models. And then maintainer, reviewer agent picked that up and did the verification of all steps that had to happen. And now, how that happened? I mentioned that I will open an issue in the meantime so that we can see what's going on in my other repo, which is like for testing only. And I have the controller running on my local machine that I use for that management, for the demo purpose. And the overall flow is I have a controller running in Kubernetes, which is your typical Kubernetes controller, but it's also a little bit intelligent. It has access to Claude as well, to Claude SDK. And whenever there's an event coming from GitHub, it tries to evaluate it against Claude about which type of agent should it actually spawn to handle that request. In my cluster, I have few resources that actually describe the templates of the agents and the resources that need to be created when such event happens. So just to showcase you one such resource, there's a role template. Sorry for, I need to check if I have YQ. So yeah, okay, that's much better. So I mentioned that we can have, for example, role templates, and I have role template created for provider Anthropic repo that says that, okay, whenever agent is created to actually handle logic in that repo, it needs to have access to GitHub via MCP server. It needs to have basic agent toolset. It needs to have some Go packages that I know that are required for development. I'm lazy, so I have networking unrestricted, and it runs on Opus. Plus, it has some prompt template, which is templated to have the issue number, repository URL. And as you can see, I'm actually passing some instructions that I normally would not, because I don't have skills in that repo. I have comments, so I actually need to force the agent to do what I want. But how the full process works is there's this intelligent controller that I've mentioned that gets an event from your code repository, evaluates it against Claude Haiku, so the smallest model, then checks, okay, do I need to create a triage agent, a maintainer agent, reviewer agent, or any other kind of agent? If I do, I take the template from the cluster, they build the whole provider Anthropic resources from that template, create them in the cluster. Crossplane manages creating the resources at the cloud provider side, and then Kubernetes job runs against those resources and runs your typical agentic loop. So you get the full end-to-end software lifecycle development flow done with one single Kubernetes controller and few templates that tell it how to handle specific repository for your case. That's overall pretty over-engineered setup, I would say, for the demo purpose. But I wanted to showcase you what can you do with provider Anthropic, which is not just, I want to have a model, I want to have an agent that I can talk with in my chat app. So that's how far you can push provider Anthropic in such case. Like I've mentioned, live demo, I just wanted to bump Go, triage agent, did some work, found files that have Go version in some versions, pass that forward as memory to maintainer agent opened PR, and we are currently waiting for reviewer agent to actually do a review on that. If I did not have guards on the repo, it would also automatically merge it afterwards. So that's overall what you can do with provider Anthropic, but in the background is your classical crossplane provider. So you have access to those low level, let's say, provider resources like agents, just tools definition that you need to have your agentic app running, environment. So also what packages do I need? What kind of networking do I need? What kind of sandboxing do I need for my app? Sessions, which create instance of an agent based on agent template and environment. And then you have everything else that you may need, like memory, credentials, custom skills for your agent if you would like to pass some skills for your particular use case. And yeah, that's overall what you can do with provider Anthropic. You can start really smart and just create those sessions and connect to them from your chatbot application. But then you can also scale that and build your fully autonomous repo management systems or feature development systems. So something similar to what Stripe did with their, I think it's called Goose, Stripe Goose. Yeah. So if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer. I can also, minions. Thanks for them. Exactly. So it's pretty similar approach to what Stripe did with minions, but using Crossplane provider as an agent engine, and then some additional Kubernetes operator that handles the, say, batching and all of that. Provider Anthropic is open sourced. It already had 2 releases. I will be adding more. The second part, so the agent factory, that's not open sourced yet. I need to clean it up first, but I also plan to open source it.
Yeah, Jonas, the role template that you were showing us, is that something that's defined in the provider, or is it defined at a layer above the provider, or where was that? Because I didn't see that in the repo.
Yeah.
Is that just committed?
So that part, the repo, the role template is one layer above.
Okay.
Yeah, that's already the controller level. So how the agent factory, I will mention that because I think that makes a lot of sense with provider Anthropic in mind. There are 3 resources that we get. There's a factory, which allows you to define which namespaces are supposed to be managed. It creates the controller instance that manages repositories belonging to that factory. And it defines which images are used to create agentic jobs, to manage the repositories, and how the webhook should be configured to actually fetch the events. So that's the first level. Then the second level is role templates, which I've shown one of them. And that's the agent template. So what tools do you need? What MCP servers do you need? What model do you want to run? And some prompt with templates. And then the last layer of abstraction is managed repositories, which tells the operator in your namespace which GitHub repo do I actually want to manage, under which factory, which roles are enabled, and which templates should they use. So you can, for example, just create triage agents for your repository, or just reviewer agents if you don't want to give that full end-to-end access to the agent. So you can start really small and just, for example, triage issues that come from some external users of your platform, and then start adding the future. Let's say then you can add reviewer, and in the end, if you feel like you can actually handle most of the development with agentic flows, you can just add maintainer as well, and it will create features for you based on issues. Like I've said, the control is pretty intelligent. So if it says, for example, that reviewer found some bugs in the implementation, then it will spawn another maintainer instance of an agent and actually work on fixing that. So it works in that reconcile loop.
And is this factory project, is that something that you're open sourcing as well? Or is this kind of like a reference implementation or?
That's reference implementation for provider Anthropic, like usage at scale in multi-tenant environments. Currently, I'm finishing some edge cases, and then I want to open source it as well.
Oh, okay, cool. Very cool, dude.
Yeah, but under different name because Dark Factory is already taken. So yeah, that's the plan. It was inspired by like the original Dark Factory project. So that's the goal. I need to clean it up. I want to open source it to just showcase how you can use provider Anthropic at scale. So yeah, that was provider Anthropic. It happened because I wanted to check how good Claude will be with developing providers from scratch from some SDK. Lessons learned, it really does not do well in the beginning. You need to know what you need to know what you want to have in the provider. You need to know how the reconcilers are supposed to look, how types are supposed to work. And you need to build that based on your own, because without that, it really does not know how to write cross-plane providers. There's not enough context in the internet, I guess. But after some time, it's pretty stable. I've run the update processes or other resource processes multiple times just to check if I get the same results. Most of the time, it's like almost the same. Depending on the scale of the feature, it's either exactly the same code or really similar because of how stable the API at Anthropic SDK is and how repeatable the patterns are.
And so for like in your commands directory there, like the add resource command, is that basically like that's a Claude Code command that it defines the workflow that an agent would take to, okay, cool. Somebody wants to add support for a new managed resource that the Anthropic SDK supports. This is the steps I'm going to take to go do that autonomously and create a new controller, new CRD, like all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. specs if there are overlays, because like I've said, some resources are pretty specific, like skills. And then SDK surface, figuring out what Anthropic did at the SDK layer, almost always the same thing. How deletion policies are supposed to work, because Anthropic has two kinds of deletions. And then everything else is templating, rendering the templates based on the SDK types, and information about how to handle like Crossplane and Gridjet generators, so extractors, references, stuff like that. So overall, I think that from third or fourth resource, every other resource was added with add resource comment. No manual work, like zero manual work at all. It was just add a resource, go grab a coffee, be back in 1 hour, resource is there, end-to-end tested, seems to work, and be done with it. But it was a lot of trial and error with figuring out the templating. I've seen Eric in chat that he had a lot of success generating abject providers via Cloud. I can say that I've actually also had a lot of success there. It works much better with abject because it handles the generation for you. So abject harbor provider that I've also open sourced this week, that was also Cloud mostly. The generated examples from Terraform worked in, I think, like 1 in 5 cases in Terraform Harbor provider. They don't really check their examples that often, I think. So that had to be done manually, but everything else was also Cloud. So it's doing pretty well if you have a good structure and good like flow on how to generate the code, I think.
Jonas, where are the templates defined that you were talking about? Where are those?
In Hack. So
in
the
Hack,
same
okay.
same as with abject providers.
Right.
The initial repo structure was abject project template that removed all the Terraform specific stuff from it.
Yeah.
Nothing else. So just reconciler, Go files that have templated resource instead of proper resource name, and then here is supposed to be a create call, here is supposed to be observe call, stuff like that. So overall, nothing fancy. It's, if you would check abject template for a reconciler or abject template for types file, it's, I would say, 90-ish% the same thing as with abject, with just some informations about how to handle Anthropic SDK specific things in few places.
Very cool. There are more questions for this interesting provider here?
I think this is super cool, but I also think there's like several people who are working on like auto-generating providers. So I wonder if that would be like an interesting. I know someone who's not on this call who's also working on it. So I think it's a kind of a promising approach. Maybe we should be thinking about like getting some folks together.
Yeah, I think that would make sense because in that particular case, if I had to add another provider using the same templates and same comments, I don't think that would happen, because how the Anthropic SDK is structured is pretty specific. So if we would have another SDK that it does not follow the at least similar structure, I don't think that generation would work as expected. So I think that's something that we should explore. Good news is that Stainless, so the generation framework that Anthropic uses, is open source still. So in theory, there may be other projects that will use it in the future. That then it should work. At least what I have should work pretty well. But like you said, we have few people working on that from a few different angles, and I think that would be great to start looking into that. I've also seen on KubeCon that there's a project to generate controllers directly from OpenAPI schemas. That could also be probably used in our case to generate like provider specific code from OpenAPI schemas. So
yeah, I wonder over time too, Jonas, like how how much commonality there is in like the skills or commands to kind of generate providers. Like the templates are definitely going to be different depending on the underlying SDKs or underlying technology. But I wonder like what sort of commonality can be factored out of the skills, like the general approach you take. I imagine there's got to be some overlap across those.
I would say probably most of it, because you always need to follow almost the same steps as you would follow with Abject, right? So create types, generate references, mark field. One of the things that does not really work well if you are not really explicit with generating code is sensitive fields. Abject just picks up which fields are sensitive in Terraform and generates system like secret references to them by default. And in that particular case, you actually need to kind of tell Claude, okay, here are the rules to follow to mark fields as sensitive, because they are not marked in OpenAPI schema or in the SDK. So in my case, it's like a fuzzy find. If there are words like secret, token, auth, whatever, then that's probably sensitive. But that's something that we would for sure need to take into consideration, because it's not as easy as with Abject.
Yeah. So somebody hasn't already done the work to mark them, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Cool. Oh, awesome. Yeah, thank you for showing this off, Jonas. I think this is a very cool example of like, the underlying infrastructure, plumbing, control plane plumbing to manage resources, and then building interesting stuff on top of that to solve practical problems as well. So this is cool to kind of see a lot of things come together here to do really cool stuff.
Happy to hear.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
I will. I know that the second project is not Crossplane specific because it's a Kubernetes controller, but I will also share it in Crossplane Slack when it's open source. So,
yeah, it's related.
It's
all related.
kind of related.
It helps complete it. Yeah, dude, for sure. Please, yeah, feel free. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, that's the everything we had on the agenda here for today. So last call for anything anybody wants to bring up before we adjourn. All right. Well, we're early in the 2.4 milestone, so we will next time we meet, we'll definitely still be working on 2.4. And folks reach out for anything that they need in the meantime. Thanks, Jonas, and thanks everybody for being here. Good to see you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.